Good day, everyone. Welcome to Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, your host. Glad to have you here. Like to have your questions. If you're here on the Two-Way platform, raise your hand. I never read the chat. I do glance at it occasionally, and when I do, far too often I see smack, whether on X or YouTube or here on the Two-Way platform. Please don't put smack in the chat. Two great guests today. Two great guests. Republican Jeff Roe, Democrat Brian Wolff. They'll be here in just a moment. Eager to take your questions. Brian has been on the platform before. Jeff is not, and Jeff is one of the smartest people in politics, and we're delighted to have him today. So if you've got tough questions like three-variable calculus, you should be asking him of Jeff. He can handle questions that some of our other guests, not all, but some can't handle. So today, the Trump cabinet meeting was supposed to start at, I think, like 11-ish. Can't remember what the announced start time was. It started late.
It's about an hour and 9 minutes.
Hour and 9 minutes. So here's the good fortune I had. I finished recording the morning show, doing the morning show live, and then recording next up. I got on the subway to head uptown, and I need to get a haircut. Those of you who are eagle eyes will notice my hair is shorter than it was this morning. So I had about an hour and 9 minutes, as it turned out, to walk from the subway to my barber shop, to get a haircut, and to come home. And so I heard the entire Trump cabinet meeting. I did not see it. And just a little pro tip, if you want to get your haircut, take one AirPod, turn it upside down, push it deep into your ear to risk damage, and then you get a haircut and listen to the whole cabinet meeting. So I heard the whole thing. And it was funny because it did not last 3 hours, hour and 9 minutes, because the president today said after his remarks, he called on Rubio, called on Kristi Noem, called on Attorney General Bondi. I think that's all he called. And then he said to the entire assembled cabinet, we're not going to hear from all of you because we want to take some reporters' questions. We got to go back to doing the peace deal. So only raise your hand to talk if you really have something to say. So you can imagine the dynamic, right? If you're in the Trump cabinet, do you want to not raise your hand and act like, you have no business to talk about? Or do you want to raise your hand? So it was interesting who did raise their hand. Amongst those raised their hands was Bobby Kennedy, who then talked on and on about Tylenol. And it never really got interrupted that I could hear, but that was the downside of only listening to it, because I suspect people in the room were trying to signal him that he did not need to give another speech about Tylenol. If you care about the Tylenol and autism issue, he seemed to back off a little bit. The president too. They seem to be basically in body language was high and tone was high. This is a good idea, but not really backed by a lot of the science. But it might be a good idea, so probably do it. It was interesting. Anyway, the whole cabinet meeting was interesting. We're going to play clips to you from that. Most of the news today involves the same two stories we've been talking about for the last 72 hours. Middle East, or same three stories. Middle East peace, the government shutdown, and again, what I now call Trump's deployments. I feel like that's a good shorthand for what's going on that doesn't, excuse me, put my finger on the scale. So what we're going to do, if you want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand if you're here in the Two-Way platform. In a moment, I will bring in Jeff and Brian, and I'm going to just get their overview thoughts, probably on all three stories, because I'm eager to hear what both gentlemen have to say about that. And then we'll play some video clips, particularly from the cabinet meeting, which I quite enjoyed. And then they'll analyze, and we'll take your questions. So lots to get to on those three topics, and some really compelling sound, and Hakeem Jeffries talking smack. You can't imagine who he's talking smack about. Actually, you can if you've been paying attention to the news, but stay tuned for that. But first, a word from one of our sponsors tonight, and it's a sponsor our friends at Cozy Earth are offering you 20% off all your purchase. If you go to CozyEarth.com, use the code Two-Way, the promo code Two-Way. That's on the bamboo sheets. It's on the bubble cuddle blanket, which I bet Jeff Roe loves. That's just my intuition. Jeff Roe has a bubble cuddle blanket. And, of course, the pants. All 20% off. You go to Two-Way.com, put in the promo code Two-Way. Pants, joggers, shirts, everything. The bedding has, as you know, a 10-year, 100-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. All available to you now. Viscose made from bamboo. Keeps you cold when you need to be cooler, like in the summer. But also magically, like a thermos, somehow it knows, keeps you nice and warm in the winter. It transitioned here just today from very hot to somewhat cooler. And I'm still wearing the same pants, and you can wear them anywhere. Again, if you want to be part of the Cozy Earth family here, because home isn't just where you live, it's how you feel, go to CozyEarth.com, promo code Two-Way. All right. So excited to welcome Jeff Roe in here. Jeff Roe is he's a little bit cross between I'd say Lee Atwater and Kaiser Sose. Jeff, how's that? Does that sound right? Got to unmute, Jeff. We're missing all the bon mots.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's well done. Well said.
All right. Jeff lives in Houston, Texas. He runs a consulting firm that's the envy of everybody I know because it's grown vast and hires great people and has expanded their offerings. They don't fix your pinball machine, but they do just about everything else. Jeff, how'd you get your start in politics?
I was in student government in Northwest Missouri State University, and my local state representative, Sam Graves, ran for state senate in 1994, and my hometown was in the new Senate district. And I went down and talked to him, and we became a friendship that's lasted, 30 some years. And that was my first campaign that I got paid on. I'd worked on a couple others and dropped out of college a couple times, and got some experience. But that's my first real race.
And have you ever worked in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I was the chief of staff for him. We got elected in 2000, and I was the chief of staff for him from 2001 to 2005.
And who are some famous politicians you've worked with? I'll tell folks, Ted Cruz and Glenn Youngkin are two of them. Who are some other folks you've worked with?
Oh gosh, this is name drop time.
No, I mean, just so people get it. So, Ron DeSantis, Glenn Youngkin, Ted Cruz.
Yeah. We have our firm has represented 181 congressmen, 16 senators, and 15 governors in the last 20 years.
Wow.
So, a few. Well, they're all famous.
All right. Jeff is just understands politics in three dimensions. He could be your campaign's pollster. He could be the ad maker. He could raise the money for you. He could do general strategy. He could do it all. And there are not a lot of people in either party who can do that. Very happy to have Jeff here. Brian, welcome back. Brian, you ever heard of Jeff?
I absolutely have heard of Jeff. He's a legend in the campaign strategy world.
He is indeed. I tried to make that clear without using the word because it makes him a little embarrassed. Brian,
legend makes you sound old, Jeff, but legend's a good word, right?
Brian's worked for many as well, including one of the greatest as well, a legend also, Speaker Pelosi. Who else have you worked for, Brian?
Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah.
In the Senate, prior in the Senate. Chris Van Hollen. I've worked for a lot of members over the years, but clearly trying to get Miss Pelosi up through leadership.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't speak for Jeff, but I bet you two Democrats who Jeff has the greatest respect for would be not their policy views, but their political acumen would be Rahm Emanuel and Speaker Pelosi. That'd be my guess. Jeff, am I right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I disliked Brian for a long time, so I'm glad to finally meet him. He made a hard run at Sam back in the K Barn. I guess that was 2008. I think you were the ED then, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, great to have you here. I want to get your view on these two big stories. The deal seems to be done. President Trump spoke about it at length at the cabinet meeting today. We could show you 1,000 different things he said about it, but here he is talking about the war, ending the war in Gaza and lasting peace. Number 4, please.
Last night, we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. There are places you don't want to be, but we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there, and we're working on the timing, the exact timing. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me, but we're going to have an official signing.
He said he's going to probably speak to the Knesset at their invitation. He said he was first U.S. president to do that, which surprised me, but I assume he's right. And Marco Rubio spoke at the cabinet meeting, effusively praised the president. And based on what I've seen so far, the Democrats are still pretty quiet about this. Brian, I'd love your just sense of this as a moment in history, both for the substance and the politics, how you see this.
Well, two ways. I don't think you could take any credit away from the president for an accomplishment like this. I think we all know from, studying foreign relations over the probably last 4 decades. This is quite an accomplishment. I don't think it should be minimized in any way. It's really important for the Middle East. And I think there were clearly, I would say though, that there were other partners that deserve credit for this as well. This was not just Donald Trump. And, I think that Tony Blair, and I think that Egypt, and I think there's some others that provided a lot of leadership to get this across the finish line. So, I do hope we spread that around a bit, but again, I don't think you could take this credit away from the president.
Yeah. Jeff, is this how big a moment is this for the world in America?
It's a big deal, and it's a big moment. And it's also a unique personality that could have got Bibi to the table. And he had a lot of countervailing sentiment in Israel on this, and how long it had gone and what the real emphasis was behind it. And Trump's international strength and relationship with him is probably couldn't be done by anyone else, regardless of party.
Yeah. All right. I want to play one more bit of sound for everybody, and then we're going to move to other topics. I want to get a lot of questions in because it's a great opportunity, Brian, the question both Brian and Jeff. So again, if you want to be in on the conversation, you're here on the two-way platform to ask about anything, please raise your hand. This is one of the questions the reporters was quite interesting in was what's going to happen next, right? Phase one seems relatively limited. Return of the hostages, both dead and alive, Israeli withdraw to some extent. And then there's all these things. The president had a 20-point plan. We don't know exactly what was agreed to, but he was asked a lot about what's next. And here's the president talking about whether people are going to be forced to leave Gaza. For this 4B, please.
Who's going to be forced to leave? No, it's just the opposite. This is a great plan. This is a great peace plan. This is a plan that was supported by everybody. I mean, as I said, they're dancing in the streets of many, many countries right now. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. No, we're not looking to do that at all.
Okay. I'm going to move on. Again, we'll break format a little bit because I want to get to a lot of questions. The shutdown. Lots of things happened today, more than have been happening. But some cutting in the direction of saying Republicans are going to get their way, but some cutting the other way. And it seems like where we're headed is towards what we always knew would be the solution, which is a clean CR, but a commitment of some sort, of some specificity, to have a discussion about some of the healthcare issues that the Democrats are making a price for their votes in the Senate. Now, is tension between Schumer and Trump an inhibitor to a deal? If so, we're probably a little bit away from the deal. Chuck Schumer said something today that has gotten Republicans very upset. This is number 11, please.
Each day, our case to fix health care and end the shutdown gets better and better, stronger and stronger.
So I don't know. He's basically playing political analyst on the Senate floor, and that did not sit well with Republicans, including the president. Here's what the president said about Senator Schumer's comments. Number 9, please.
Schumer proclaimed this morning that every day gets better for them. No, every day it's actually getting worse for them. And they're having a rebellion in the Democrat Party because they want to stop. And if you saw all of Schumer's, I watched last night like 10 different times over the years, he said, you can't shut down government, you can't shut down. And now he's the one that shut it down. So this is a confession that he's acting not to serve the people, but to serve the partisan interests of his party.
Okay, and then one more point of tension. We showed you last night the heated exchange between Mike Lawler, Republican of New York, and Hakeem Jeffries of New York, the Democratic leader in the House. Here's Hakeem Jeffries on a podcast today, going right back at Mike Lawler. Is number 13, please.
I'm not the one. Don't come for me unless I send for you.
Mike Lawler got in your face and words were exchanged. And for a moment there, I saw you square up. And I was like, oh, snap, it's about to go down.
I want to hear what I have to say.
Oh, I'm listening.
So why
Go
don't you
ahead.
just keep your mouth shut? Mike Lawler, who's a complete and total fraud, is waiting outside to step to me. And I'm like, this guy? So, you know, I think some of my team would have probably preferred that I just ignore him. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not the one. Don't come for me unless I send for you. And I did not send for this malignant clown. And so we, you know, had a conversation. But you're right. I haven't seen the video yet, but there was a moment that I think he thought he was confronting Beltway Hakeem, but he saw Brooklyn Hakeem. And it definitely took a lot of restraint for it not to go down any further.
So again, I'm no expert in human nature, but malignant clown is not a peace offering. Jeff, does it feel to you, based on what you see and what you know, that we're headed towards a deal, or is the tensions fraught and no way to consummate this now?
Well, I think what Hakeem said, well, hilarious. At least it was unscripted and he meant what he said. And
yeah,
he's a feisty guy. So everybody on his side's going to like that. And everybody on our side's going to think, you know, they're in a box and they're getting frustrated. The Schumer is different. I mean, Schumer's, those were typed words for him to say. And in high stress situations, which shutdowns naturally are, really the most important thing to do is not the worst thing. And the worst thing that you could do is provide a news cycle of coverage. And that's what he did. That's why it's most surprising, particularly as a veteran. Hakeem's not really been in this situation before.
Yeah.
So you would assume that he would do that on a podcast with friends. And that's, you know, spirited and, you know, feisty. That's okay. But when it's typed for you and that's your intent, is to make the political point that you're a pundit and you're trying to win and it's a game, that was a real missed opportunity and a real mistake. Yeah. The first one I've seen him make for quite some time, to be honest.
Trump played pundit explicitly. He said, that's basically in the cabinet meeting. He said, I'm going to be a pundit. And he said Schumer would lose to AOC in a primary. But I don't think he really knows. Brian, thoughts on those two contentious exchanges and what that might mean for the possibility of a deal?
Well, I think anyone coming for Hakeem Jeffries is absolutely nuts. You know, he's a man that's always prepared. You know, he can simply state the facts in a way that people clearly understand them. And, you know, that's just not smart. And I do agree. I think Lawler sort of camping out, if you will, and approaching him like that was probably not smart. On Schumer, let me just say something different, because you said Republicans, you know, really didn't like it. Democrats didn't either. You know, Democrats didn't like what Schumer said either. That is exactly what's wrong with the Democratic Party, is that if you're going to make an analogy, I know what he was trying to say. What he should have said was, more and more Americans are beginning to understand what the tax credits mean for healthcare. That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
But there's no getting better and better. And Donald Trump should have said, you know, it's getting better and better for the Republican Party. Well, no, it's getting worse and worse for the American people. But that's what's wrong with Democrats. They're just not, you know, that terminology and really being lazy about that just made something that was very clear to communicate. You know, it made it as Jeff said, it was completely a foul ball.
Yeah. Well said. All right. I think what I'll do is another quick word from a sponsor to get that done. And then we're going to talk about a few more topics, then your questions. So again, if you're here in the two-way platform, you want to get in the conversation, please raise your hand. This message is not meant for Jeff, because Jeff quite admirably has already lost a lot of weight. He looks fantastic. But for those of you interested in losing weight, you want to avoid weight cycling where you gain a lot and lose a lot. You want to lose weight in a healthy way. Not fad diets, not those GLP-1 injectables. What you want to do is try non-prescription lean. Lean is developed by doctors to avoid weight cycling, help you maintain healthy blood sugar, control your appetite and cravings, and convert fat to energy. Go to takelean.com right now. Use the promo code two-way, 20% off to avoid the weight cycling. Half of Americans do it. Gain, lose, gain, lose. It's not a healthy way to do it. It can cause all sorts of problems. Do damage that you don't even realize. So again, if you want to try a way to lose weight, a healthy way, approved by doctors, developed by doctors, part of a healthy lifestyle, diet, and exercise, go to takelean.com right now. Tell them I sent you. Don't tell them Jeff sent you, because they'll say we don't know who Jeff is. Jeff's that skinny guy who's always on the show now. All right. few more topics. First, Jeff, you're not working for any of the Senate candidates in your Republican primary, are you?
I am.
You are. Which one are you doing? You a super PAC for somebody?
We have Paxton.
Oh, you do. For the campaign or the PAC?
Both.
All right. Well, handicap the race for us, even though you've got a dog in that hunt, as we say in Houston.
Yeah. So there's there's 2.2 million people that are going to vote. Wesley Hunt joined the race this week, so Republicans have another DC creature to choose from. There's a Paxton. Now they're going to battle it out to see who's in the runoff with Ken, and we feel really good. Again, I should be more objective here. So the party has really moved on from the statesman bipartisan deal making, as evidenced by the last 5 minutes of this conversation.
Yeah.
And so Republicans are pretty feisty. They're very conservative, and Senator Cornyn has had the long 19-0 career on elections. But there's something that smart people are saying that are just totally inaccurate. And John Cornyn is one of 13 statewide office holders in the last 10 years that actually got more votes than Donald Trump did in the same election cycle. He got 72,000 more votes. That's his crossover appeal. And so what they're saying is, so what some say, as I understand, is that they're going to have to spend $250 million to save Texas if Ken Paxton is the nominee for the Democrats winning the seat. That, while, again, smart people, I don't think I'm the only smart guy in the room, but that's irrational. And we have a use case. He would get 72,000 crossover votes in a normal election.
Right.
So then the theory is when the 2026 election cycle for Republicans is going to be how many of the 2024 Trump voters can we get to turn out in 2026? That's going to be the test.
Yeah.
And so do we think Ken Paxton would get more than John Cornyn would get? Do we think we get 72,000 more Trump voters to vote in 26 and 24? I think it's probably 5x that. In fact, if you go back and look at history, the last time we had a midterm, Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, John Cornyn running against Beto O'Rourke. Again, it's the 2018 version of Beto before he kind of clowned himself in the presidential. He was a post-partisan, just a wonder kid who was riding skateboards in the Whataburger parking lots and talking about people over politics. And he wasn't trying to take AR-15s away at that time. John Cornyn would have lost that race because Ted Cruz could increase turnout with Republicans because he was a conservative warrior. That's not the case now. That John Cornyn does not have that ability. And by the way, he was running against MJ Hagar when Donald Trump was running against Biden during the pandemic. So many different things at play. Yeah. And so I think that if we want to lose the Senate race, John Cornyn being the nominee would be the way to do it. But also, if you want a conservative that stood in the gap for conservative ideals, there's only one choice. I don't think John Cornyn can speak at a Republican event. Yeah. I don't think you'll see him speak at a single public Republican event because he'd get booed off the stage.
Right. So Hunt is in the race now. It's very complicated. And of course, if Donald Trump endorses in the race, do you agree if Trump endorsed a single candidate that would be dispositive?
It'd be tremendously impactful for us. It would help Wesley a lot. Yeah. I think with Cornyn, it's 30 years. It's probably baked in the cake a little bit.
So you're saying even if Trump endorses Cornyn, it's not only not dispositive, you wouldn't even make him the favorite with the Trump endorsement, or would you?
It would probably out of the gate make him a slight favorite. It would probably help with money, but I don't know that it moves his numbers a lot.
All right. Interesting. All right. Let me run some couple things by you guys, because then again, I want to get to the community here. Court hearings today in Chicago and Portland for the president's deployments. Here is the headline from the New York Times on the Portland argument. That was a court of appeals. The Chicago case was a district court. New York Times on the Portland case says this, and reporters always think they can listen to the oral arguments and somehow decide where the case is going. I'm not sure that's always true, but New York Times headline says, judges challenge arguments for blocking Trump sending troops to Portland. So the district court judge said block them, that they should be blocked, and the Court of Appeals seemed skeptical of that. Brian, would you say that this is a story that people are paying attention to that's important to the country, or is this really just a political legal story for these individual states and cities?
I think the last part, Mark. I think that, look, there was a federal judge that clearly articulated what was missing, and that was ICE's ability to be able to arrest people without a warrant or probable cause. I mean, that was actually what it was too. You know, I think there's a little bit that's, you know, waning here because locally these leaders, especially these local leaders in Portland and Chicago, they know their communities. And I think that that's what's happening with, you know, police departments and, you know, and the state government are starting to band together against the approach of ICE. And it more or less has to do with, you know, pushing back on peaceful protest. I mean, a lot of these protests have been relatively peaceful. They've been, you know, protesters and journalists. And I think a lot of what the overreaction from ICE, you know, that we're seeing on TV. I mean, I don't know what they're using out of these guns, but it must be something similar to pepper spray to disperse them. But I'm just not sure that all that's really necessary for them to do their job. But again, they're going to have to do them the right way, and that means with warrants or probable cause.
Jeff?
I can't, I don't understand the political process the Democrats are going through here. This is they are walking right into Trump's hands. I mean, there is no way that you have a surge of law enforcement to help cities that are troubled with it in a crime-ridden way. And we know that we have a bunch of agitators that flock to these scenes, and we know that things get unruly. We've seen it time and time again. And so I don't understand the battle that these governors are going through to reject and avoid getting more support on the streets where they need it. And we've seen the impact of it. Nobody thinks this is like, well, not nobody, but a swing voter, an independent voter, they don't believe this is some sort of overreaction. Obviously, immigration is one piece of this, but it's also just the crime-ridden nature of places in our country that it does not have a detrimental impact to surge law enforcement in some of those areas. We have people that commit crimes over and over again, and a lot of times it's the same people, and we need to get those people out. And certain states are just not doing that.
Yeah, Jeff, let me say this. There's, you know, I think it's just directed in the wrong. I think that ICE and what they're doing is directed in the wrong places. You could ask Rahm Emanuel what the overall problems are with the city of Chicago and the surrounding areas. It was not the Latino community. And the Latino community is clearly, we know, is the largest part of illegal immigration, right? So, you know, Chicago's problems weren't really that. Chicago's problems were a deeper problem in the African-American community and crime and murders and everything else that was going on in the area that mayors like Rahm Emanuel could not get a hold of. So I don't know, I'm with you, Jeff. I don't really know Portland in that way. I really don't know a lot of the local politics there, but I know that Chicago is sort of misdirected, misguided. That's all.
Well, and I would say that's why if there was a concerted effort and a communication style where they could let the ICE agents go where they need to go, and they could relieve some of their folks to go to those high crime areas. In most cities where there's high crime, it's typically in a 25 square block radius, right? I mean, it's concentrated crime, and if they work together, they could surge where they needed to surge their own troops and their own police forces, and use the aid and abetting of the federal call up to go to those areas. And so, but when they fight, it's just a natural reaction. If Trump's forward, I got to be against it. That's what gets in a situation where you probably have there's too many people in one area and not enough in another. And I think that probably the best case of coordination, at least with a Democrat, was in D.C., where they did a little bit of both, and they got some of the worst offenders that commit the most continual crime activities and got them off the streets. And so that's a real-time test of how Democrats could actually work with the president to bring overall crime down. Again, it's a lot of the same folks that are doing some of the worst things, and they know their names, they know roughly where they live, and if they worked with local law enforcement, they could probably secure the area and bring down violent crime.
Interesting, both. I appreciate that. Again, we're going to break format a little bit just because I want to get to questions. So one more word for one more sponsor, and then and then your question. So please raise your hand if you want in the conversation. Yes, sorry, got a little distracted. According to Fox News, there's a grand jury meeting right now to consider charges against the Attorney General of New York, Tish James, for mortgage fraud. This has been reported as something that a previous prosecutor looked at and turned down, said it wasn't sufficient evidence to prosecute, similar to what happened with Comey, at least prosecute successfully. So we'll see what comes out of that. It's rare to get a report about what a grand jury is doing in real time, but it does happen.
Somebody kept their cell phone on, right?
Exactly. Or the prosecutors let it be known. All right, last sponsor for tonight, CB Distillery. Opportunity to get a discount here too. CB Distillery products can make a real difference. You're having trouble sleeping, pain or stiffness after exercise, or maybe stress, feeling out of sorts, mood and focus. 2 million people, more than 2 million people, have used the products of CB Distillery. Trust them to help imagine the ability to wake up rested and relaxed. Right now, go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code TWOWAY, 25% off. These are products that are made with no fillers, no artificial, just clean ingredients, premium CBD. And again, an opportunity to try something that's worked for so many people for sleep, relaxation, and pain, as well as mood. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code TWOWAY, cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code TWOWAY. It gets you 25% off. This time you can't tell them Jeff sent you. Tell them Mark sent you. All right, here's the questions. Come in, tell folks after you unmute where you are, what's on your mind. For Jeff and for Brian, two sons of the South. Jeff's really from Missouri, but most of Missouri might as well be Alabama, really. Sue, welcome in. Thank you for being here.
It's Missouri.
Yeah, for some people,
go.
not for everybody. Some people say it the right way.
No, I lived in Missouri for
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah.
Missouri.
All right, welcome in. Show me. That's what you say there.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
First off, in Gaza, I think the peace accord, all kudos to Trump and his team for taking it this far. I'm very hopeful that things will go forward and the hostages will be released, which would be a fantastic thing. And I believe in his cabinet meeting today, either in response to a question or in his own comments, he alluded to the fact that maybe this could help move Ukraine forward. And so my question basically is, given the influence and the way that all of this came together, is there a hope that, looking forward, that any of this will bring in a resolution to Ukraine?
Before you guys answer, and it's a great question. Now it's being reported Letitia James was indicted by the grand jury, not just that they were hearing the case. So it's being reported by CNN, MSNBC, that she's been indicted, which will be interesting. Sue, hold on. Let's just talk about this for a second, then we'll get to your Ukraine question. This is someone the president, I would say, she's right up there with Comey in terms of people he felt persecuted him through prosecution and found the case that she brought to be ridiculous. And of course, she ran promising to prosecute the president, which any fair-minded American would tell you is, no matter who the target is not consistent with American tradition. So, Jeff, thoughts on if this report's true, what it will mean for Letitia James to be indicted?
Well, I think from the Mar-a-Lago raid to today, we've seen what lawfare can do, and we've seen it. You and I have seen it, and Brian's seen it. What every administration, when people get investigated, indicted, the hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal bills that come out of that, and it's almost done appearing so on a whim or a political reason by those in power. And so she obviously did that. She said she was going to do it. She fulfilled her promise. She found that, unfortunately for her, one of the weakest cases she probably could have found to bring, and that draws a lot of scrutiny. And where do politicians, where can you find bad information around politicians? Anywhere you look. And so she's suffering those consequences of doing that.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly we'll get to the facts of this post the grand jury. But I think it's one more example. I don't think it really helps Donald Trump to really sort of weaponize departments of the government. I don't think that is a good look for him. I think, quite frankly, it looks, and Jeff, I do agree, this has happened administration after administration. I do agree with that, but I don't think with Donald Trump, with with the Middle East and everything, I just think it makes him look petty as opposed to something that's a real priority for this country, which would clearly be solving this shutdown issue.
It's one count of bank fraud. Okay, we'll keep monitoring that. Brian, why don't you start answering Sue's question about the possible connection between the Middle East deal and what might happen with Ukraine?
Yeah, I would hope so. I think that is probably, Sue, a little bit of a longer shot, just because we're dealing with an autocracy with someone like Vladimir Putin. That's just very different. The construct's very different. I think, Trump, that relationship that he had forged with Putin earlier on has seemed to have disintegrated. So I don't think that those same elements exist, where he grew a relationship with Bibi over time, over a lot of meetings and a lot of conversation, that they have, a lot of trust was established. And, I think it's just a very different set of variables. But I'm like you, I hope, but I think that's just a little bit a longer shot there to be able to look at those two countries and think after what's at stake here. Although it's really kind of the same set of circumstances when you think about it. It's about land, right? It's about the land that and who it rightfully belongs to. So, but again, I think the leaders are very different there.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, the international consequences here are much different. I mean, you have a retaliation from a offensive that was started by a neighboring country, and those two things align. But with negotiations, there is momentum, and momentum is everything in politics and life and deals. And when you can get close and you have momentum, you want to strike. And I think that because to that extent, I would say if you ask everybody on election night which deal would have got done first, you probably would have thought that Ukraine and Russia would have been done first. It's taken a few months. This one, I think, is frankly more complicated, if nothing else, because of religious and terrorist groups and all the rest that are involved here. But I think that it creates some momentum, and I think a tougher deal to do. Putin just wants, certain access to the ports, and so that land is what he wants, and they're not giving it to him. And now he's had, 3 years to try and get it, and he can't get it. And so I think if he's allowed enough off ramps, hopefully Trump can make him take some of those. This one's different, and a whole different muscle that Trump used to do this, and he used it with the counter aggressor, and obviously it had gone on a long time, and there's political things at play. Putin doesn't have that. His people are suffering economically. The Ukrainians are getting killed. Obviously, Russians are getting killed too, but it's an a frontal assault. And so anyway, I think it's different things at play, but I think it adds momentum to the international community to say, hey, we can actually stop these things. This can actually get done. And Trump is at the fulcrum of the ability to communicate to world leaders to bring him to a deal. He wants the deal. The finer points will be negotiated, but let's get a deal. Once we have that construct, we can argue about the small things, but we got the big thing figured out.
Sue, second question.
About the shutdown, it seems to me that both sides agree that illegals should not have access to government health care. I don't think Democrats are opposed to means testing programs so that giveaways aren't given to millionaires, billionaires. I guess more Brian, but either one of you, why isn't the Democratic Party, and this is what's so frustrating, they just do not seem like they have a plan and about anything. Why aren't they just coming out and saying, no, whatever, is in the law now about illegal immigrants, no, they don't get to health care, and we will not be giving these subsidies to the people that make, millions of dollars. If you're a millionaire and you get $7,000, if you're in, that network, why can't they just come out and say that, take it off the table?
Well, Sue, back to Schumer's comment, they're saying it,
They're
But
not writing it down and like putting it in paper, like.
yeah, they're saying it. I mean, illegal immigrants' access to health care under the ACA never existed. Okay. And so going forward, this tax credit is just a renewal. It is not inclusive or adding anything like illegal immigrants to that. I just think the Republicans on top lines are, you're the power, Sue, of the podium when you have the House, Senate, and White House. And when you have the power of the podium like that first, and the majority is always first in all three, then they're able to set the tone of that. And basically what it means is Democrats are going back and having to correct that. Well, we know that the first statement, and Jeff knows this very well from campaign politics, the first statement made is the one that actually goes the longest way. It's carried through, it has a through line to it, and correcting something doesn't have near the carry, unless, by the way, what I was talking about earlier, everyone is on the same talking point. You don't say anything but these 10 words or these 8 words. They don't need to. There doesn't need to be a paragraph about it. There doesn't need to be an hour-long sermon about it. It's 8 words, and that's all it is. And I think that's what I said. I agree with you, Sue, that I think that's what's wrong with the Democratic Party is, we're wanting to talk about, instead of the plate that's on the table, we're talking about the glass that's on the table, the flowers that are on the table, the pot that's on the table. We're talking about everything, right? Instead of the very point that we need to get across, which is that, illegal immigrants do not have access to the ACA, and they never have, but this tax credit is for that. I think Senator Barrasso, made a little bit of progress today when he actually said his comment was that let's do a clean CR. I'm going to be talking to Democrats about this. I'm going to be talking to them and trying to reassure them that we will come back to that. And I think Democrats are going to have to get comfortable that that's actually going to happen. And so I think there's going to be a bigger strategy on sort of making that come alive, that, pass the clean CR to reopen the government, but we will absolutely keep our word on that. So I think the more that they get together and talk, which, President Trump has not encouraged, which is, it's just unfortunate. But the more they talk, senator to senator, I think you're gonna see that develop over the course of the end of this week, beginning of next week. We're in the 3rd week now of the shutdown officially. So I think as you go into the weekend, since the Senate is back, you're going to have more conversations. And a lot of these folks, Republicans and Democrats, they are not alienated from each other. There are some that are very close friends. I think there's got to be a little bit of assurance that they'll keep their word, and we're going to come back to it.
Jeff.
Yeah. Peace, love, and understanding. I'm going to stick with it. Brian is a worthy guy to talk with. The extension, this mild extension. I mean, we added 5.6 trillion in debt in a temporary way for the pandemic, and 350 billion of that were these subsidies that the Democrats have kind of tied their horse to for these negotiations and to shut down the government. And I mean, manifestly premiums are up because of Obamacare, which was supposed to curb the growth of healthcare. It's up 20% since it was passed. We went from spending 79%, from debt to GDP ratio in 2019. Now it's 97%. Well, it was 97% last year. It's now 98%. I mean, we're talking about $350 billion. It was supposed to be a soothing moment to increase the pool that could receive benefits. And frankly, I kind of wish that the shutdown was over more. I mean, I think we should take things to pre-pandemic levels and increase it 5% and have that fight instead of this one-off fight, which I think actually helps Democrats a little bit from a messaging standpoint, except they step on themselves a lot. But we're spending a lot of money. And this was a temporary program to increase the eligibility, family of four up to $104,000 a year, and restricted some of those, or relieved some of those conditions to apply. And I don't know why it's a big deal to go back to that. Obviously, it impacts a lot of people. 2.7 million people have chosen to do this in Texas, as an example. So it's obviously going to impact real people. But we have a spending issue that, by any measurement, is completely out of control. And it's a fight worth having, in my opinion. I wish it was a bigger fight to take us back to the pre-pandemic days. It was only temporary. It was only for the pandemic. And now we're just going to run it for another 10 years. I just don't think that's realistic. And so the messaging around it, obviously the Democrats won 2 national elections on pre-existing conditions, which wasn't a top 100 issue. So I think they're kind of hanging their hat that Republicans are against Obamacare and this is Obamacare, and they're going to confuse everybody. But I don't believe that's what it's really about. I believe it's a growth of government that just never retrenches back to its original level. And we continue to do it and continue to do it, get people stuck on it, and then you can't take it away. And that's what we see time and time again. And that's what this is. It's the basis of all this.
Yeah, and there are plenty of conservatives in the party who agree with Jeff, and for some reason, the Republicans in the Senate, for the most part, don't seem ready to take on that fight. So out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching the coverage on cable of the indictment of the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, and I say this without comment, but the first 2 guests I saw on MSNBC after it was announced. Now I think they were pre-booked because one of them's in studio, but just for the semiotics, the symbolism of this, if you don't know who these people are, to mean nothing to you, but literally the first 2 guests were John Brennan and Mark Elias. So if you talk about red and blue America, like those 2 people, and Fox has Trey Gowdy on. So we're dealing with the divisions. Sue, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way always. Chris, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are after you unmute and what's on your mind for Jeff and for Brian.
Sure. I'm here in the Hudson Valley of New York, and I have a domestic policy question, although I will share a quote for Letitia James, which is, I think, from The Wire, which is, if you come for the king, you better not miss.
Yeah.
And that's where she is. She may be now.
Yeah.
My question is, my ears really perked up when I heard the story about the Texas National Guard being deployed to Illinois. And, I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a while, and there are Republicans, there are Democrats, but states have a lot of strong feeling about their identity and their, autonomy. And if Michigan or some other state sent National Guard troops to Kentucky, I venture to say it wouldn't go well.
Yeah.
And my concern when I heard that is the last thing I'd want to see is for some tiny spark to ignite emotions about other states' National Guards coming in to enforce things in other states. And my question is, do you also think this is alarming or concerning? Should I not be alarmed by it?
Yeah.
Do you think this is an issue that voters will start wondering about and caring about?
Yeah. Chris, it's a great question. And I'll just say, and then I'm interested to hear what the Texan has to say about this, because as I always say, Texans don't think they're better than the people in the other 50 states. They know they're better than the people in the other 50 states. So that's my first point. The second point is often there's hypocrisy, right? When the situation happens, Hillary Clinton now is a champion of states' rights and offended by the thing you're raising. And Republicans seem to have a problem with it. I think in this case, the Democrats have the stronger argument, because there's not a conservative in the country. If Barack Obama said, I'm sending the Massachusetts National Guard to Alabama to do whatever, there's not a conservative in the country who would say that's okay. Not one. I'm looking at Jeff Roe attempting to have a poker face, but I know he knows I'm right. So Jeff, what do you think about Chris's point that the people of Illinois should not have to have suffered the indignity of the Texas National Guard being brought in, should they?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I would allay your fears, because Texas was the biggest beneficiary of National Guard troops from other states coming when the border crisis was ravaging the state.
Yeah.
And so every Republican state.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but Texas welcomed the help.
That's right.
That's different than Illinois.
That's no doubt, and we had to, because we couldn't get help from the federal government.
Yeah.
And essentially, the Astrodome was being filled up each month of illegals coming across the border. And it was not literally, but that number of people. And so we welcomed people from all over the country because we had a crisis that was unimaginable, Arizona as well. And so because of that, I think Texas is first, and Texas is paying it back to the administration, and now fixed it. I mean, we have like border crossing in the dozens now instead of the dozens of thousands every day. And so I think that's probably maybe make it a little bit more palatable. Obviously, going to hostile territory.
So Illinois is thankful for the payback.
Well, they didn't send any for us, so they're probably less. The politicians are probably less.
Jeff, I'm going to let Brian respond first, and I hope I'll press you the way I would, which is you're really not. I know you're not responding, Brian.
Yeah, two things. I mean, Chris, I see hear your concern on that, but what I said before, please hear me when I said this before. The issue in Chicago is not about illegal immigration, and it's not about the Latino community. And so I go back to that because we're acting like, and we're kind of, I don't know, we're just kind of walking past that like it's not true. And that's not what's going on in Chicago. Chicago is deep-rooted, long-term issues related to crime that is not rooted in the Latino community as far as illegal immigrants are concerned. So that one, and then two, I would just say that, President Trump needs to be awfully careful because the Texas National Guard going into a state like Illinois is exactly what he said before. We have a war within, and you're going to have a war within this country. And that's exactly what he's stoking. And I think that we've got to be really careful about movements like that. I think the analogy of Massachusetts and, I think you said Florida, or wherever you said was absolutely a good analogy. It's true. Republicans would never tolerate that. But I just think there's some overt things happening here, and people need to pay attention.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree with you on both the politics and the substance of. There's decades of failed leadership in these cities. And if the federal government wants to, in conjunction with immigration enforcement, in conjunction with defending ICE, in conjunction with defending federal facilities, and to fight crime, if they want to send in federal forces, I'm all for it as a citizen and as an analyst. But the sending of the National Guard, the issue Chris is raising, from one state to another where it's not welcome by the request of the federal government, that just seems to me to be just in violation of American principles, regardless of party. Do you not see it that way?
I don't fully. I understand the point and I understand the argument, but it is just not okay that a few leaders decide that it's okay for the killings and for this to continue in states. Yeah. And they have not done anything about it. And they could have increased their own state police force. They could have done a lot of things around it. But there are people that are getting murdered that shouldn't have to get murdered.
I agree. And what I'd say is call Governor Pritzker, call the mayor, have a day-long conference with them and say, our only alternative, if you want work with us to fight crime in your city with your National Guard, is to ask other states. But they didn't do that. They didn't offer to work with the mayor and the governor. And I just find it, again, it's the spirit of Chris's question. I just find this to be really troubling precedent to be set, regardless of party. It just.
Yeah. And if I could just add one thing, and this is just my concern. I've been in situations that many of us have. Men are out there. You've got men coming in from another state with guns. You've got men in the state who, feel like it's their job to take care of their home. And, they go out, they get a little charged up, and they can get into a situation where it only takes one or two people in a charged situation like that for something to happen. And it just seems to beg for an incident like that to happen that further divides the country, right? That further elevates the the violence. And to Mark's point, if the states need if the federal government needs to be involved with the states, then it should be the federal government. there's a lot of emotion, as you all know. You all were born and grew up somewhere, and there's a lot of emotion between states and taking care of their own and having other people's values imposed on them. And living in Kentucky for a while, it drove it a lot deeper inside me that you need to be careful about those things. And that was really what made me worried about.
The only thing I would say about that is that I was in the National Guard for a long time, and we were deployed to other states for typically national disasters and cleanup efforts and things like that. And we all have artillery has certain theaters that we would get deployed in if the need ever arose, and we would do keep up trainings in different parts of the globe. These guys are all working together. I mean, the Missouri National Guard and the Kansas National Guard and the Oklahoma National Guard. I mean, we trained together. We all went to the same basic training. I understand you can have something bad can happen, and you certainly could be proven right in a matter of days. But honestly, I think if you're a trained military personnel, I think it's a little bit better than that. And we're not sending the Texas Rangers in, by the way. I mean, we're sending
there's some esprit de corps amongst these people that would allay some of my emotional concerns about what they might do.
Yeah, we all train. I mean, I'm out now and been out for several years, but we're all trained together. We're trained together originally. And then our 2 weeks in the summer camp is always together at different bases, and artillery trains together. MPs all train together in different states. So I think there's a little bit more comedy there.
Well, thanks a lot for taking my question,
all right, Chris, thank you. Last word on this goes to a governor who said criticized the National Guard deployments to Chicago. This governor said, Oklahomans would lose their mind if Illinois sent troops to their red state. That was said by the Republican governor of Oklahoma, Kevin Stitt. Apparently, he's not a big fan of this. So, although I just attribute to that the fact that Oklahomans just reflexively criticize anything people in Texas do. Yeah. At least in my experience. Thank you both. Grateful to have you, Jeff. I hope you'll come back regularly. Jeff's harder to book than Elvis, and weighs half as much.
Proverbs 17:28. It's better to be silent and thought of a fool than open your mouth and prove it. So
I think all you did was confirm the big buildup I gave you. Very grateful to you, and Brian, thank you for coming back, and I hope you guys will come regularly. Really appreciate you participating.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. A couple things to tell you about tomorrow, or I'm sorry, not tomorrow, next week on the 14th. 4 p.m. Eastern time, another opportunity to talk. It's a special for two-way community members only to David Bonson about the economy. We're going to focus on AI and how it's affecting the economy currently and how it might in the future. 4 o'clock Eastern time on two-way. Go to twoway.tv/TBG, the Bonson Group, to sign up for the event and also to sign up to David's newsletter, Dividend Cafe. Comes out daily. It's free. It's a great source of information about everything economic. 7 o'clock tonight, in just a few moments, if you're watching on YouTube, 7 Eastern, Dexter Filkins will be Michael Moynihan's guest in the Moynihan Report. Dexter's one of the best war reporters, really, of our lifetime. He's written for the New York Times, for the New Yorker. Just an extraordinary guy. I've been at dinner parties with him, and he's effing fearless, Dexter Filkins. And one of these war reporters who also can write well and really understands the horrors of war. Doesn't glorify it, but really understands it. So I recommend that to you, Dexter. And then 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, Sean and Dan will have a lot to say about the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, which we'll know by 9 o'clock Eastern time. They'll have a lot to say about the indictment of Attorney General Letitia James. And it's Friday, so we'll have our winners and losers of the week, as well as what to look for over the weekend. And I think we'll have more details about the president's trip to the Middle East and about the First Lady's announcement. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but they say she's got a big announcement tomorrow, so we'll see what that is. Grateful to Sue and others who ask questions. Grateful to you all for being part of the two-way community. Again, thanks to Jeff for being here. Excuse me. Jeff for being here for the first time, and for Brian for coming back. And I will see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Oh, forgot to tell you about Next Up. New episode of Next Up. Posted in a moment. It posted now, really. Listen to it as a podcast, watch it on YouTube. My reported monologue on the 5 funniest moments in politics of the week. Some you'll have seen, but you'll get my analysis of why they're funny, and at least one I bet you don't know about. And then 2 great guests, 2 close friends of mine who have books. Leland Vittert, a book I think every parent should read, and my friend Drew Nieprint, a book anyone who's ever eaten in a restaurant should read. How's that for wide audiences? Both great conversations, and so please watch or listen to that. And again, I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.